The Witcher 3 is probably one of my favorite games of all time. Ever since the release in 2015, I have been playing it on and off non-stop, always coming back to this amazing world. And even 6 years after the release, there is still a lot of people enjoying the game, which tells you about its quality. Now, of course, lately CDPR has been under fire due to Cyberpunk release, but nevertheless, we cannot deny the fact that Witcher 3 is a really good game. So what made it so great? Let's find out. Before we begin, if you could please click that like and subscribe button because you do help out a lot with the algorithm, thank you so much. So without further wasting your time, let's get into it. Now, The Witcher 3, when it came out, was by far the biggest project CDPR has ever done. Going from level-based game to a huge open world definitely did a lot of good for the famous Geralt of Rivia. Simply exploring the world, finding various villages that are plagued by various issues, monsters roaming around, really made the world immersive and fun. Uncovering the mysteries and curses and why they happened in the first place was, at least for me, a very good game design. Every quest had a little story, every encounter gave you something new from the lore, or you simply wander into a situation and you, a Witcher, have to solve it. Usually those things didn't really concern a usual Witcher, but of course Geralt always finds a way to get himself involved. Of course, besides the questing and meeting various characters, there is a certain symbiosis with each element of the game. Everything worked together to paint you that picture, and there was always that emotional incentive and that goal all the way behind: finding Ciri. Your adventures through the land, following in her footsteps, was always a viable force pushing you forward, and by doing those quests you start getting stronger and stronger connection with her. Of course, when you ultimately find her, there is a really nice feeling, but on top of that, the looming threat of the wild hunt and kings going after each other's throats made it so that you always had something to do, and even though Ciri was the main objective, other things always found their way in front of Geralt. But The Witcher was also much more than that. It also proved that single-player games, if done correctly, can be a huge success and can live on for years to come. In an age where most devs go for multiplayer or always online, Witcher showed a different side and reminded us that not only single-player games are here to stay, but they can also offer so much more value for money. Now, of course, Witcher is also a look into the past of CDPR during more simpler times. Now, of course, quests can be only as good as the writing and characters you interact with, and I really like how The Witcher captured both sides. You had fun, light-hearted moments, especially if you were spending that time with the other Witchers in Kaer Morhen, but it also had a much darker side, and twists and turns you can only see in a good movie or when you're reading a good book. The entire game felt like an adventure, one big adventure to find Ciri and also do everything else along the way. And characters you did interact with, especially the big ones like Yen, Triss, Vesemir, Dijkstra, Lambert, Eskel, and others, really made that relationship like a family. You felt connected to those characters, their stories, and how events which unfold in The Witcher 3 changed them. I mean, one of the best stories in a quest in any game was Bloody Baron quest for me. I will go into detail about it sometimes in the future because I believe I never did, but the human story behind those characters that made them into what they are, both good or bad. They were not only simple antagonists or protagonists, but people formed by the environment they grew up in. And you could also see that all of that in the game. Everywhere you go, new activity was waiting for you, and people plagued by their own history and their own problems. I mean, every game has its plus and minuses, even The Witcher 3 had it, but what's important is that overall in the big picture, those problems were minimal compared to all of the other good things the game had. And when you have a quality product like that, of course it's going to be played for years to come. Only if it had a proper modding support, Witcher 3 could have been easily the next Skyrim when it comes to modding. much more than Cyberpunk 2077 in my opinion, but sadly that's the biggest flaw regarding The Witcher 3, no proper modding support where you can actually make big mods, not quality of life or retexturing. Even though with the limited ways to mod the game, the community created so many great things that I urge people to try out, you know, the mods, because they really enhance the experience, at least when it comes to the visual side of the game. Witcher 3 is also an amazing ending for Geralt. Connecting him and Ciri felt like you were reading throughout the books again. You see them, you know, training, you see the relationship Geralt had with Ciri even before the games. And even though Geralt was mentoring Ciri, she also changed him, made him into an overall better person, depending on your ending though, but if we go to the best possible ending, it was like seeing the final scene of the Lord of the Rings where hobbits meet with Aragorn to sail away back home during the end. And you could also see that the world is changing, Witchers were no longer needed, so seeing Geralt finally relax into Sa was that happy ending everyone was looking forward to. And also, if we were ever to make a quick comparison with Cyberpunk, CDPR never really stepped away from that predefined character role. Even though you could change the appearance in Cyberpunk, Geralt in my opinion still had a more open choice. You can legit sell Ciri to Amir if you wanted to, going so differently to what Geralt represents and who he is insane to see. Something that Cyberpunk didn't have, even though you were shaping that character. That's why The Witcher also succeeds as an RPG. You are put in the shoes of Geralt, but it still felt like you were controlling him, like you were defining his overall persona, which worked without making him opposite to the Geralt from the books. So after everything is said and done, Witcher 3 will definitely be remembered as one of the GOATs. The impact it had on the RPG and gaming industry in general cannot be forgotten, and that's why I believe Witcher will be here for years to come. Of course, there is the next gen upgrade coming out later this year, which will of course get new and old people back into the game. So if you never played it or you just want an excuse to play it again, you can wait for the next gen upgrade, but if not, then I definitely recommend you go through the game again. Of course, the upgrade will be free if you actually have the game, any version whatsoever, so it should come out in the second half of 2021. And you know what part of me thinks once the next gen upgrade comes out? That Witcher 3 will be filled with more people than Cyberpunk, sadly, especially when you see that the game was breaking records even years after it came out, thanks to the Netflix The Witcher of course, but also thanks to the quality of the game. And now as you get more and more people into this universe, Witcher 3 is a game they absolutely must play to really experience Geralt and his character. And that's what in my opinion made The Witcher 3 so great. All of the little things and impacts it had, it made it more than a game, and especially once you see the quality inside the game itself, it just pushes you to play more. And it's no surprising I actually see people saying in the comments whenever I do a Witcher video, well, time to go back to The Witcher. There is something so good about the game that you can always go back to it. Even if you see just a little thing, you will go back to replay it again because it's fun. And that's the greatest thing about it. It's fun to replay it again. Even though Geralt was a predefined character, there are still many things you can do to change the outcome of the game. Thank you so much for watching. Tell me down below what memories you have from playing The Witcher 3, and also tell me what you think about this video. Check us out on Discord and Twitter, and I also do have Odyssey, which is like a YouTube alternative if you want to check it out, and I do have Patreon if you wanted to support the channel in an extra way, and also huge thanks to my current Patreon supporters. This is LKM signing out, and stay classy everyone. Bye bye.